Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I like to honor our guests coming because I know that they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive. And I want to stop and thank them and give them honor for coming and spending such precious commodity here with us at Threads of Enlightenment. First is time. Everyone has been off for 24 hours and Jeremy is about to spend some of it with us. And I want to acknowledge that and thank him for it. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. Jeremy is going to allow us to access some of his insights and his knowledge and all of those wonderful things that was deposited in him. And so we want to stop and honor him and thank him for coming. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
I'm so excited to be here.
It's an honor, man. And I know you have done much. And guys, we have a treat today and we're going to have some fun with Jeremy as well, because you know, having fun is a part of this journey that we walk. Nothing is always serious, man. So Jeremy, I always ask this question, and it is an opportunity to afford, because I came from corporate America, to give the guests their 30-second elevator speech, if you will, but it's levered through this particular question. And my question is, and we talked about the different types of journey. How do you serve mankind?
I think it's longer than 30 seconds. But through a lifetime of experience and moving around in this world with a neurodivergent brain, I work with people who are struggling to find themselves in a world that is confusing, a world that is changing, and a world that feels like it can let you down quite a bit. I help people find their true essence, values, mission statement, goals. I hold people accountable to those things because we are the personal, the professional, the spiritual, and the physical in this world. And all of these things require attention to make sure that we're living in a healthy way. And oftentimes what we Americans do is we get so far into one quadrant of these things. And it's often the professional. And we go so far into this, so far into education, so far into the work that we do, so many hours during the week that the hours that we spend outside of that are kind of a sideshow to our real life, which is our service to a corporation or to a government or what have you. We begin to lose many of the greatest years of our lives to work. And there's so much more to us than that. We need to be successful in our work. But what I do is I help people be able to balance all the different aspects of their lives to live the most incredible and powerful version of themselves.
I love it. In Western civilization, if you will, we have been programmed, Jeremy, as you said, focus on the professional aspect to the point that if we lose our job, many will commit suicide because they do not see themselves beyond that job. And they believe that that is who they are. And that is not true. And so we're going to talk about some of that. One of the things that we do here, Jeremy, that our custom is to visit some of those spaces that we reside for a short while where we are being programmed, if you will. One of the very first unit is that family. In this family, we are going to learn a couple of skills there. We're going to learn about relationship. We're going to learn how to communicate. We're going to learn about our belief system, our modus operandus, if you will, of how we are going to show up in the world. What was your family unit like?
So I grew up with a very devout Mormon father, and he believed very much in the way that the church teaches. And he's a very structured man. He's a very disciplined man. And so I was always a different kind of kid. I had ADHD. I was very wild. I was very outside of kind of the norm. And I wasn't interested in church in the way that he really would have wanted me to be. And many of the messages really from my father was what you would consider to be very middle American beliefs about
Mhm.
what a life is. Good work is the key to good fortune. And, having a faith community is an incredibly important thing. Specifically with the faith community, it wasn't something, Mormonism never quite resonated with me. And so I kind of went out and left my family for quite a long period of time before later in
Mhm.
my life kind of coming back to it, because I was looking for a family that really resonated with me. And I was trying to go in different places and make this group my family, and
Yeah.
this group my family, and this group my family. And as life goes about, there are no complete solid things that you can count on all the time in a world that moves and moves and moves. And so my family unit, I've become more close to them as I've gotten older, more
Mhm.
close to my father, who is still very devoutly Mormon, more close to my mother, who has changed a great deal in my life. The hardest thing for me has been learning how to navigate this world and the way that it's built with a brain that is very different than most of the people around me. And my brain was very different than
Yeah.
certainly my family's was. And so I attempted to follow the very straight line of my father, who was a civil servant. He worked for NASA,
Mhm.
and he was able to be exceedingly successful there in his career. And he was able to keep essentially one career track the entire way. My brain doesn't work that
Wow.
way. I tend to be a bit of a ping pong ball, and I bounce from thing to thing to thing.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until recently, and I've worked my way in my career from being a lobby security officer to being a CEO, that I
Yeah.
kind of figured out that my brain doesn't work the way that corporations want my brain to work, and that I need to stop trying to fit my mind into that world. My brain works much more in the creative and the entrepreneurial space. And
Mhm.
so, the original question was about my family. It's taken a lifetime for me to grow back into being truly, authentically me, embracing my family for each person that they are,
Yeah.
and stop trying to move through the world to seek a new family, seek a
Yeah.
new space, seek the new answer to the problem, and just simply be the greatest me that I can be where I stand.
That is the purpose, I believe, of the journey is to assist us to go back and remember even the family unit. And there's much to learn as we walk through our path. But sometimes what we do, we come back home, if you will, to the simplicity of the family. And it is a great place. But when we come back, Jeremy, we're coming back with a degree of empathy, a degree of respect, a degree of love, a degree of acceptance, regardless of the differences amongst our family members and so forth. As this young individual that has a brain that is not allowing him to hook up, if you will, into the program that is the master program that is set out there, that we have to plug in and be a part of this unit, if you will. When he was looking into college, this young man, and we know that strain of the family because, yeah, all of us have those type things within our family. As you're looking now, heading to your independence, as they say, and you are at the place of college, what field of study did you pick if you went to college, Jeremy? And why did you pick that field of study?
I got into psychology, and a lot of people get into psychology because they're trying to figure out themselves.
Yeah.
And I got a bachelor's degree in behavioral science and ended up just throwing myself into the working world in something that didn't have anything to do with that. But very shortly into working at the Social Security Administration, I
Hmm.
realized I needed to maybe make some better plans. And
Yeah.
I got into a master's program for marriage and family therapy
Hmm.
and started working with kids, mainly kids and families in this kind of Sacramento, greater Sacramento area, and ended up moving into a larger corporation that was a major hospital here on the West Coast, and I got an MBA to make sure that I had all the credentials to be able to move up in the corporate system, which I most certainly did. What has been most incredible to me is that all of this book learning that I've done through my life, it didn't really help me
Yeah.
understand me or people like me until I had my first experience with a psychedelic medicine. And then all of a sudden, so much of my own value, my own sense of relationship with my
Mhm.
higher self, my own sense of connection with other people is something that fell into place. It was almost like after my first experience with a sacred medicine, it was like I had to relearn every single thing that I thought that I knew
Yeah.
about the wellness of a human being and about what is actually important and what actually makes a sense of peace, a
Yeah.
sense of wholeness. And, it was all very new to me. And you can get relatively evangelical when something like this is new. You go, oh my gosh, I found the answer to everything. And I think what I did was I opened the door and I looked into a new universe and I said, I have value no matter what it is that I do.
Yeah. That's
But many of those old messages were hard pressed to kind of go away. And so for many years I would have my psychedelic adventures on the side and
mhm.
continue to work in the corporate world until I wanted to devote myself to actually really doing something that was benefiting people instead of figuring out strategic plans for corporations.
Isn't it funny how we try to balance, um, even when we have been open, if you will, how we go back into the monster, the belly of the beast, and we try to manage our life there. And as time progresses, we realize that there is no way that I can even stay here any longer. Because one of the things I wanted to go back in, but you mentioned it a little, here's this gentleman that has been open to all the knowledge within psychology and the tools in psychology to help an individual to make them aware of self. And from what you had just said, you hadn't really used any of it as you were learning about them. Talk to me about that space for just a moment, and then we'll branch off into the introduction of the psychedelic pieces as one, as you mentioned. But here you are, Jeremy. You were exposed to the knowledge, if you will, the data, the information that is available to us about human behavior, human psychology, the ins and outs of our thoughts and all these different things. You were exposed to that. And yet it did not affect you. Talk to me about Jeremy right there. Why did it not jump in some of it to begin to usher you to this seeking of who you are?
Fantastic, fantastic question. And I think the answer really is that everything that I learned in grad school and what I began getting taught as a marriage and family therapist, it had so much to do with techniques,
Hmm.
breathing exercises. And these things are not inherently bad things, but they are not the whole thing
Yeah,
of an individual. And I was walking into very difficult cases, children who had been neglected for years and years, and somehow therapy 1 hour a week was supposed to be doing something to heal this child's soul.
yeah,
You had a child that's living in an exceedingly abusive environment, and your 1 hour visit a week is supposed to help them deal with what is, in essence, ongoing trauma for that child. It felt exceedingly inadequate in a system that was re traumatizing that child over and over and over. Now that I look back at myself, I started in the first grade with a diagnosis of ADHD, and they gave me Ritalin and Dexedrine and all these different things that
yeah,
were popular to give children in the 1980s. And I recognized I had one teacher that I would go and see in grammar school. And that was the place where I could really excel. She would work with me individually, and I did a
yeah,
really great job in there, and I could do amazing work in there. And then I would go back into the school environment where it was chaotic, where it was distracting, where there were bullies,
hmm,
where all of these different things, this ongoing ostracization and bullying would happen, and I was getting increasingly traumatized by the rest of the system around me.
yeah,
Wellness is something that is all encompassing. Wellness is your environment. It is the people around you. It
hmm,
is that whole, you are the top 5 people that you hang out with.
yeah,
And that wasn't necessarily something that was taught in marriage and family therapy school.
yeah,
You were taught how to take that 1 hour a week and try to work with this thing and patch this thing up. And I found the work that I was doing as a marriage and family therapist was inadequate in the absence of a greater sense of work on the whole person, their
yeah,
environment, their social group, their everything. and being more selective about who it is that you hang out with, who you spend your time with, what your values are, holding to that, getting rid of people in your life who are offending those values on a regular basis, pulling you backwards. Those were not things necessarily that were taught in grad school that I had to not only watch happen in the real world as I was ineffective in my ability to actually help people come up in their worlds, but recognizing how to do it in my own world by cleaning out the trash in my own world and actually creating a life for myself that I would suggest for my clients to have. And so that's how I've developed my whole essence of working with people is by transcending your whole life and everything in it, essentially taking out the trash in your house, in your social life, in your spiritual life, in your professional life, and focusing on the things that really, really matter. That wasn't something they went over in grad school.
And while you were there learning the lab, if you will, grad school was basically the theory, and you're in the lab seeing the results within the young individuals, which sparked now within you a reason to dig deep and to find out. When you did that and you began to dig and find out, what did you find, Jeremy, in you that you started to excavate, and what tools did you bring in? I know the psychedelic is one of the tools. I tell people the psychedelic is basically the express elevator to take you to where you need to be, whereas some other tools will get you there, but psychedelic makes you put aside all of your fearfulness, your apprehension, all the other things that will keep you bound to this level. And it allows you to go faster than you would. Talk to me about that introduction as to what you began to find out within you, Jeremy, that caused you to propel you to say, man, I need to find out through this particular experience, to use the express elevator, if you will. What did it look like in Jeremy that he wanted to investigate, if you will?
I think I'll start with this. Prior to this awakening in my life, I was exceedingly afraid to die, afraid of what was afterwards, afraid that there was nothing, afraid that I wouldn't exist. And
Jeremy, let
after,
me ask you a question. Where did you pick that up?
wow, yes, and that's definitely where I'm kind of about to get to. Now, I have no fear of that. And the pickup on that was just simply living my life in a state of fear and anxiety, that I didn't have control over things, because death was me not having control over my life. Okay. And so death in my life, I'm very organized. My underwear drawer is really quite nice. I should show you. My desk is very organized. Everything in my life, my cars are very clean. I'm very fastidious about these things. But in death, I felt like it was this concept of, what if I don't exist? What a terrible thing. Then I began with this kind of new state of knowledge and enlightenment in my life, recognizing that it doesn't end that there is consciousness beyond that, because I've been able to access it. I've been able to see it. And not only have I been able to see that other consciousness exists and experience it, I've been able to recognize how silly my organization is in terms of me feeling like I have actual control of anything.
Yeah.
I have a really good ability to create the illusion of control of the things in my life. And I can do a really good job of lining up the bowling pins on everything, but I can't control everything. And so moving into this next space in my life, it was embracing this higher version of me, this higher version of me that doesn't live by fear, doesn't live by control, doesn't live by this sense that I kind of live or die by this earthly version of what success looks like. That success is truly what I create in my life based upon the joy that I get to experience in every single day. That supersedes kind of an older me that would just simply, I would kind of tease my wife that when there was an obstacle in front of me, it was like a door, and I would pound that door with my forehead long enough to break the door and then walk through it. That was my way in life, that I would go through things. I've always been a very hard worker, but I recognized that so many times in my life, I didn't just look down and say, oh, there's a doorknob there. I could just open the door. And so now you can very gracefully, and I realize this now in my life, very gracefully work with however it is that your brain actually works. You have to figure out how your brain works. Everybody's
Yeah.
brain works a little bit differently. Mine is a little bit like a circus with clowns juggling bowling pins and a NASCAR race going on in my brain at the same time, all the time.
Yeah.
And it can be really fun and can be really creative. And it can also be a little overwhelming. And my ability now to embrace my different brain and embrace my life for joy,
Yeah.
not for status.
It is, the journey is a beautiful thing. I tell people it affords us the opportunity to create new stories, because what kept us in bondage, Jeremy, was a story that we had in our mind that we created, and where it comes from most of the time, the seed or the genesis of it came from some form of trauma that was introduced into our life at some point. And when it was introduced into our life, we created a story in order to manage it, to be able to survive, if you will. And as we are embarking on our journey of self-development, we realize that, wait a minute, that story is not a reality, if you will. It's just something I made up. There is something else. And you had an opportunity to visit what psychologists will call that quantum realm, and religion will say sometimes that heavenly place, that place where you get a chance to see the beauty of all of us, the connectivity of us as we are. When I see that, as one that studied electrical engineer, I see a field of energy just buzzing all over, and all is connected to those energy. And when we look at the brain, we see it's like that, a field of energy being sprouted. And here we are together, and yet we are so far apart when we are coming back into this realm, that we allow human beings to tell us that one color is different from the other, and I should hate that individual because his house is different from mine. Here you are, you had your first experience. And I know one of my friends, he started the whole retreat, Jonathan, and they dealt with the psychological aspect, and he created a space where he had physicians and so forth in there for all these high-powered brain thinkers. Here you are, you had your first experience. When you were open, Jeremy, because I know what happened afterwards, because we all do the same thing. What did you do? How did it come in, and what change did you begin to see in your life manifested first in you, and then your surroundings, how you show up with others, if you will?
I was able to get through life and to arrange the furniture in such a way that I was able to have a sense of mastery over every little thing in my life. I was very controlling of my life. That's how I felt like I was able to, cope with my own ADHD.
Yeah.
In this new kind of space in my life at the time, it was about having a greater sense of compassion and empathy for everybody, including me, increasing my better self-talk, the way that I speak to myself.
Yeah.
I often talk with my clients about, think about the way that you talk to yourself, and would you allow somebody to talk to your child that way? And invariably they say, well, absolutely not. I wouldn't. Well, why do you talk to yourself that way? And I had
Yeah.
a very mean kind of self-talk, because I was always trying to push myself into a greater space, but eventually that stops working. And so what I work with and with people on, which is something that I really had to embrace for myself, is that greater sense of compassion for the world, that greater sense of understanding, that greater sense of just simply being okay.
Yeah.
And right now in our civilization, we have a really difficult time with this. And we have who are either an extremist, or you're a fence sitter who's not worth anything. And that
Yeah.
feels very much like the way that the world is kind of operating. You either stand on this side of the fence or you stand on that side of the fence, or you are so weak that you haven't chosen a side of the fence. And I'm going to convince you that my side of the fence is a better side of the fence. It's an inherently discompassionate way to have a society work.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing the disillusion of unity in a nation that, I grew up in that was incredibly unified. It is what we can recognize to be something that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But what does work is caring about yourself, caring about the people around you, irrespective of what they believe or what kind of bumper sticker they have on their car. And you feel a sense of being lighter and you're operating in your higher state of being.
Mm-hmm.
It's less fearful, it's less angry, it's less judgmental, and it's more in that state of enlightenment, that state of equilibrium with what is actually real, which is care and love and balance and our loved ones, and reaching for that next state of transcendence for yourself in where you find it. You're not going to find it in arguments and in discontent and in judgment.
It's not located there. So as you began to excavate, Jeremy, and you're doing all of these things and you're seeing the changes within yourself, when did it begin? When did it lock in? We dance within we go, and you talk about it earlier. You were still in corporate America. You were still doing the dance. When did it lock in? And how did that transpire? Because then what it does, it escorts you to where you are today. But there's a process that took place that caused you to move, if you will, from that location where you're trying to dance, if you will, to have all these many different partners. And life itself is trying to say, no, I want you to cut loose of that particular partner because you and I have some conversation that we need to talk to because I want to take you someplace. When did it lock in, Jeremy, and how did it come about and cause you to go, okay, it's showtime?
So this is still honestly rather painful. I had a CEO position with a company and I had a few people working around me, and I wasn't able to see the way in which that they were exceedingly ambitious to have my position.
Yeah.
I was simply every single day getting there, working hard, doing my thing. And before I knew it, there had been, in essence, a coup in this organization, and I was on the bad end of the coup. So all of a sudden, I'm out of this organization feeling very abused, feeling very offended in the way that I had been treated by people who had been dishonest in many, many ways. And so there's grief, there's rage. I never would have done this to these people. And I had to dive deep into myself to get myself healthy, to not hold on to the anger that I had a right to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of us get, hurt, and anger is a part of that. And I enrolled at the California Institute of Integral Studies to get a psychedelic therapy certificate to begin actually doing this in a professional capacity. And a Native American shaman came in to lead a holotropic breathwork session. And in this session, I was able for the first time to go into a psychedelic state with no medicine and access it just on my own and go into this state in a space where I didn't think that I could actually access this sort of thing without something in me. And I was flying in a murder of ravens. They call a flock a murder. I don't like that, but that's how it is. Of ravens. And the ravens around me were guiding me, and we were talking to each other, and we were in this beautiful valley.
Yeah.
And we were flying through this wonderful space of spirituality. And going deeper and deeper into me. And these ravens never left my side. They stood with me. They guided me. They stayed with me through this entire thing. And this Native American woman is beating this drum, and I'm going deeper and deeper into this, and I can kind of see this as I'm going, these wonderful, colorful ravens around me.
Yeah.
And I was flying with them and going deeper into a state of what I want my life to be, and how I want to be surrounded in people who wouldn't hurt me, but be surrounded by people who I can support and who would support me.
Yeah.
Because that is where you're going to grow the most, when you don't feel like you have to be on the constant defense against people around you who would do you harm. And so this vision was something that really, really stuck with me. And I got my little raven on my lapel pin here, because the ravens are this animal that I've begun to develop this wonderful kind of relationship with, and they tend to follow me in different places. And I was able to start thinking about, how can I take all of this incredible knowledge that I've gained over a professional career and this spirituality that has become so exceedingly important in my life, and help other people out there who are struggling to find their way, struggling to get clarity in their lives, maybe struggling with anxiety or ADHD like I always have, and to take this lift in my spirit, this state of feeling better about myself, this kind of realization of what is real and what is not helpful in my life, and help other people gain that kind of insight in theirs. And so I've dedicated my life to not only the learning, but the teaching and the constant seeking for a greater state of peace and being in myself, and emanating that out to the people who follow Mindful Mutiny and who are clients of mine, and helping them feel a greater sense of confidence, a greater sense of mastery over their life. Because you can go ahead and organize your underwear drawer, but that doesn't mean that you're living the highest version of yourself.
I love that. And guys, those are listening to Jeremy and I. He has his podcast, Mindful. Go and listen to it. I'm going to give you guys all the links. I'm going to get you guys everything, because you need to get into his space, because not all of us have everything. Jeremy saw some things within his journey, if you will, and he has afforded you guys to get in YouTube and find him and begin your journey to access his world. Yet, when you want to get deeper into his world, he has many different aspects of that. He has the coaching that you guys can get into. You have all of these things. Why? Because you want to make a difference in your life. It is about you. This podcast is about you. We want to elevate you to see who you are and the greatness of you and how powerful you are and what you can do once you recognize yourself, if you will. So here you are, Jeremy. You got a chance to recognize yourself as you are being brought into the deepness of who you are, and you begin to look at yourself and say, what is it that I have that I can serve mankind with the knowledge, all of the insights? Talk to me as now you're going to put this together, because you're going to become your first client, basically, as they say. And as you are putting the pieces together, your process, your identity, you in a format by which you are going to serve. How did that look like to you as you were putting it together? And what was happening to you with all of this knowledge, all of this insight, all of this stuff that you're now putting, because you're going to streamline it with your knowledge and your personal approach? Talk to us about how that began to came about.
Well, I had to actually kind of lay out all my life, my lessons, the things that I had hoped that I would be good at versus the things that I'm actually good at.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody can kind of learn from that, because we all want to be good at certain things, and maybe we're better at other things. And laying this out into a system where I can help people be able to live a more happy, well-balanced, and accountable life, where they know what they're about. And for me, it was about learning what I'm about, and kind of taking the lessons from, this situation that happened in being a CEO
Yeah.
and integrate that wound into my life, as well as the other wounds that have happened in my life, and bringing these things together into what has been the lesson in the pain
Yeah.
that I've experienced. And the pain that I've experienced has always been me attempting to occupy spaces that weren't for me
Yeah.
and forcing myself to occupy those spaces, whether it was a kind of work, whether it was a kind of friendship, whether it was um, uh, a religion, trying to force myself into things that didn't fit who I am. And at a certain point, you have to take a look at what's actually working in your life. What are you actually here for? And that's what I've had to do in my life. And that's how I work with people to evaluate what's working, what's not working, and develop a life where you're actually working for yourself in an amazing way.
Yeah, I believe, Jeremy, I believe that the program tells us that we ought to get a job. And when one is awakened and we hang on to the job and, God, people some people say the universe will have to create a situation to remove you from your comfort where you begin to hang in. And usually, because we are stubborn, the fruit of our stubbornness is usually a betrayal. We usually get betrayed, and betrayal will rip you away from the place that you hang on to. And when one is betrayed, after we deal with the consequences of that, because we have to go inside, the answers are there, and the betrayal removes us from that comfort that we had. And when we go inside, that's when all the answers become available to us. Because in history, there are better people than you and me that suffered. I know Jesus Christ got betrayed by one of his peeps. And so it's always those. When we look at, I think it was Joseph, the story with Joseph and his brothers. Brothers tossed him in, in a pit and tell his father that he died. He was betrayed. And betrayal is one of those tools that are used by the universe to rip us out. And it hurts us, hurt and painful or whatever, but we have to go in there and excavate that. And I believe when we look at after the betrayal of all of these people, they jump and leap higher than they were at the other place. Because what it does, Jeremy, it brings us into our assignment. And our assignment is much more important than that CFO or CEO job that you had. You were just hanging on to it. But once you were removed from it and you're here, you learned from them, but karma has a way to reward them. That's theirs. Karma will reward those. But for you, you were placed on your assignment now where you will become even more effective at what you are doing and where you are supposed to be by ordained. And you are here to rescue many others that if you were in that CFO or CEO job, you wouldn't have been that effective. And so betrayal is one of those tools, Jeremy, that the universe uses to whip our butts to get us out of our comfort zone, to put us on our path of what we were called to do. And it's usually a hard place to be. But when we look back, it was necessary for me. My personality was like that. I would probably still be there. And so when we remove and we learn about ourselves, because that's where those ravens took you to get to know who you are, you would have never learned that had you not been there. And so it is useful. The betrayal became useful to create who you are today. So here you are, Jeremy. You have put your process together, if you will, and you were your first client. And now you are going to begin to advertise and bring those folks to you. You have your first one, or you have one of them. Take us into one of those marvelous times as you began to excavate through conversation with that individual, Jeremy, when they began to move that needle from your conversation and you're able to bring them to the realization of who they are and where that pain resides, and they became free. introduce us to one of those conversations and what was that like? Number one, what it did to them, but more importantly, Jeremy, what did it do to you?
The wonderful thing about coaching is that it is so forward looking, and a lot of therapy it's backwards looking. It's processing a lot of things that have happened in your life, whereas coaching is preparing people for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the wonderful things about, essentially doing coaching with a therapy license is that you can do both sides, and you can help people clean up old things. And a lot of those old things are the way that old traumas have affected your ability to be in the moment, to be truly present, to be ready for what comes next. And what I have helped a few clients do is to reform what their vision of themselves is and what they see themselves as capable of. One of the big fears for people who have been in the corporate space is going into a space of being self-employed. Okay, it's very scary.
Yep.
For people. And I've worked with people crossing that bridge. But there's a lot of things that people don't necessarily consider. They're just thinking, I'm not going to get a check every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'm good enough to have a business of my own. I'm afraid of the uncertainty of it. And in that is old fears, old ideas, outdated thoughts, and a lack of belief in oneself, and difficulty in embracing ambiguity and uncertainty. And I've helped people be able to think of their potential in a very different way and think of themselves in so much more of an expansive way that they begin to take the steps to move into having their own thing. A lot of people don't think about this when you go, but working for a company is more secure because you can count on your check coming every 2 weeks. It's more secure than being self-employed. However, it's not, because that one job can let you go. And that's what's happening all over the Western world right now. It's companies, now the government is doing this, letting people go. All of a sudden, everything they had is gone. Right now, my income sources come from many different spaces. If one person decides that they no longer want to work with me, that's fine. I'll replace that person with another person. When you have self-employment, you're actually more secure because you have more income streams. And when that light bulb kind of goes off for a lot of corporate people who haven't really thought about it that way, that when you have income streams coming from many different places, you're actually more secure than when you have just one big income source that can go away just like that. And that's what's happening to so many people. All of a sudden, you inch that door a little bit more open, and people go, well, maybe I could do this. Maybe I do have what it takes. Maybe this could work for me. And so I've helped people move from just getting laid off into inventing their own space of work, which really honestly X needs to be thinking about doing this, because corporate America really isn't hiring the Gen X people anymore. And it's a real problem. And these Gen X people are putting in 200 resumes and getting no interviews because of their age, their experience, and their education. They're more expensive than what many of these corporations are wanting, and it's a real scary place for people to be. But when they start recognizing that you can and you have the ability to make your own life, make your own way in this world, and begin believing in yourself to do that, it's really an awakening of your own sense of value. And I've worked with a lot of people to help them start that, keep them encouraged, keep them motivated, keep them accountable, so that they're actually moving in the proper direction.
Yeah. What Jeremy's talking about is one of the last hurdles that one will have to go through, because it is one of the major lies within the program that they tell us that if we move from them, we will lose all security. It is an absolute lie. It is one of the final destination that one will have to come come and make the decision. Do you want to believe that lie, or are you going to believe yourself and create the truth of you? And when, as Jeremy said, you are one of the most valuable commodity around. You have gifts that are inside of you that are going to make you money. I always tell people this. Your gift is designed to sustain you from that system. That system, it's a system. It's simply a system. Your ability, the gift that is in you, the gift that is in Jeremy is designed to support him. The gift that is in you is designed to support you. All you have to do is believe in you and watch it happen. And that's what they don't want you to do. They don't want you to believe in you. They want you to believe in them. And as Jeremy said, if they decide tomorrow that you're gone, and we're seeing much of that happening today, guess what? You're gone. And so because your identity is based in that world, you're crushed because you don't think you can do anything else. It's a lie. You can do what's inside of you. You have stuff in there that has value, that has currency, and the currency that will help you to go from the corporate world or your government world or whatever is faith. You have to believe in you. You have to believe in you. It takes faith to disconnect, and it'll take faith to walk when you don't think it's going to work. Get up and allow yourself to shine. And we're going to produce all of Jeremy's link. Mindful Mutiny, you need to get into his podcast, get into his leadership program. All of it is get into it, because he has data, if you will, that can allow you the opportunity to see the greatness in you. You got busy, and that's understandable. Jeremy and I understand you were so busy about living and working that you hadn't stopped to ask yourself the questions as to what can I do? When you present to him, he will assist you and stripping away all of the madness and looking at who you are to create that road map by which you are going to get up and walk by faith and get your life together. Don't believe them. It is a lie. Jeremy is proof that it's a lie. I am proof that it's a lie. Millions of us are proof. COVID came, and millions of people thought that they wouldn't be able to survive. And they're thriving. Believe the lie. It's March 3rd, 2025. You alluded to the disconnect and the chaos that is out there. You have a mic. You're plugged into every single man and every woman on this planet. What would you say?
They want us to fight each other. They want us to be upset with one another. They want to draw lines. They want us to find fault with one another, and they want us to doubt ourselves. And whenever we do that, at whatever frequency that we are doubting ourselves, that we are buying into these really toxic narratives, the more control that we give them, this sense of belief that we can develop in ourselves, this fearlessness, this is what weakens all of that. When we care about the people around us, irrespective of what we're told to do, when we walk away from systems that have been toxic to us, and we actually find our highest selves, and we transcend into happy and free people who have something wonderful to give the world, that is where we are at our strongest. That's where we're actually fulfilling our creator's vision for what we're supposed to be. And that vision for what we're supposed to be is something that can honestly elude people all of their lives until we are really able to ask ourselves the deep questions about our own value, and sometimes get shook up pretty bad in order to go, I think I'm going to do this thing that I've always thought that I'd like to do, and I'm going to stop being scared, and I'm actually going to move towards it. What I'd say to each individual person is to treat yourself as the greatest project that you're going to work on in this incarnation. You are a project that deserves personalized attention, a good mentor, people around you who build you up, who don't tear you down, things in your body that make you more healthy, food that nourishes you, and a spirituality that feeds you and expands your mind and doesn't control you. A life work that brings goodness and light into the world for you and for the people around.
Well, I couldn't put it any better. And be kind to yourself. Jeremy had alluded to this earlier. Mind what you say to yourself. You are listening. Be very careful what you say to yourself. Start talking to yourself and telling yourself, I can do this, because you can. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, man. This has been awesome. I appreciate your sharing of your time and your wisdom, your insight, your journey. Thank you so much.
You're an excellent interviewer. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor, sir. Jeremy, thank you. Thank you so much. I deeply appreciate what you say and how you say it.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.